Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and thanks for watching. Today we're going to talk about real estate market trends across the Emerald Coast. Now, as we ended December 2025, the national housing story really talked about affordability and expectations. Mortgage rates were about 6.15 at the end of December for the 30-year fixed rate, which really helped stabilize buyer confidence heading into this year, 2026. Now, at the same time, the Federal Reserve reiterated the uncertainty in the economic outlook, and that remains elevated, which is a fancy way of saying we're still watching the data. Now, locally, December reflected a familiar winter pattern across the Emerald Coast. Inventory continues to build, buyers are taking more time to make decisions, and pricing is clearly separating homes that are market ready from those that are, let's say, aspirational. Now, this shift mirrors a broader national trend where contract activity did strengthen late in the year, while the price growth did slow and affordability gradually improved. Now, here along the coast, demand remains steady, particularly for relocation buyers, military families, and second home purchasers. But today's buyers are more analytical and value driven. Even in a slower seasonal market, well-located and well-priced properties continue to hold long-term appeal, which just reinforces the Emerald Coast reputation as a resilient lifestyle market rather than a short-term speculative one. Okay, so here's what everything means for buyers right now. Winter is your real negotiating window, especially on listings that have been sitting for a while. Now, with the rates that are stabilizing, the market is paying a lot closer attention to monthly payments. So you may be able to negotiate price, concessions, repairs, or rate buydowns on your mortgage before the spring competition wakes up in March, and it will, so you better be fast. December data also reinforces that time on market is your friend right now all across the Emerald Coast. Now, for sellers, 2026 success starts with strategy, not hope. The market is still moving, but it's rewarding sellers who price realistically and present their home like they actually want it sold. Wild concept, right? Homes that show well and are positioned correctly can still get traction, especially in in-demand local lifestyle pockets like Shalimar and a newer community like Deer Moss Creek, where buyer interest stays steady even in the winter. Okay, so now you have a good idea as to what is happening in general, an overview of the Emerald Coast. So now we're going to get into the statistics of each of the cities that I serve around the Choctawhatchee Bay. Now, if you're not familiar with the layout of Northwest Florida around Destin, I'm going to show you real quick. Okay, so you can see where Destin is right here. And here's the Choctawhatchee Bay, and then we have the Gulf of America right here. And again, this is in Northwest Florida. So we're going to start in Destin. We're going to work our way east, and we're going to look at Miramar Beach. And then we are going to look at North Santa Rosa Beach, this general area right here. And then popular area 30A, that's South Santa Rosa Beach in here. 30A and Watersound. Then we're going to work our way up to the Freeport area that is still growing like crazy. Then we're going to work our way west, and we're going to take a look at what's happening in Niceville. This area all up and around over here is Eglin Air Force Base. And you can see the label right here. And then we're going to work our way down to Fort Walton Beach here, okay? Right up here, we're in Destin. We're going to start with Destin. We're going to start and we're going to look at single family as well as condominiums. So everything on south along the Gulf of America, we're going to take a quick look at the condo market too. Now, anything north of Choctawhatchee Bay, there's hardly any inventory for condos, so you're not going to get a real good idea of what's happening. So we're not even going to discuss that, okay? So as you can see, just follow me here real quick. We're going to look at all price ranges. We're looking at single family, like I had mentioned. All construction types, all sizes, all bedrooms, and all bathrooms. So I'm not going to go over this every time, just the first screen so you know where to look, okay? We're going to look at just the month of December. So previously we had looked at a 12-month rolling inventory, but now we're going to look at just December, okay? We're going to take a look at the median sales price. I think that's a good bracket to look at the median, so that'll throw out the high and low, and that will give you a better idea of market trends. So what you're seeing on my screen right now, and you can see 2023, 2024, and 2025. Okay, so it's like a snapshot of each of those months in those different years. So you can see Since last year in December, we've come up in Destin for single family homes overall. Okay. Now we're going to look at closed sales real quick. Let's see if properties are still selling. Yes. So we've seen an increase just for the month of December. You know, it does get quieter here during the winter, but you're still seeing movement in the market. Okay. Which is very positive. Now let's look at days on market. We're seeing across the board days on market have increased in general. So we'll probably continue to see that trend unless you're in a micro market. Some areas still have demand and lower days on market, and you'll be seeing that in some of the other cities near the end of the video. So now let's look at the month of supply. And we're having a little bit lower supply just in December. Okay, so not overall and not over a 12-month period. So just overall, we saw a little decrease in December. Okay, now month supply, and I mentioned it in the previous videos, the standard that we use, the 5 to 6 month, is where buyers and sellers are basically equal. Nobody has leverage over the transaction. Anything over that 6 month mark, we have a buyer's market because there's plenty of inventory. Buyers have lots of choices. So sellers, I'm sorry, it looks like we're in a buyer's market now. Okay. That always change. Real estate is cyclical, just like the stock market. It's an investment product, so it's going to cycle in value. I did promise you that we're going to look at condos, so we're going to do that right now. Again, we're looking at the median sales price. We've actually dipped a little bit in the condo market. The condo market is struggling across the coast. It is not crashing. It is struggling. We are trying to find stabilization in those prices. A lot of the condos had to get their reserves up, and they had to have structural investigations done. So that's by Florida law. And a lot of the condos had special assessments. So a lot of buyers don't want to have to pay for those assessments. So we're trying to get an equilibrium with the condo market. So right now it's a little bit soft. Okay. So there may be an opportunity if you're looking for a condo in the Emerald Coast. Okay. So we've come down a little bit on our pricing. And then let's see if property is still moving. Yes, so we saw 26 closings in December, which was better than last year. So that's always a positive, right? Okay, now let's look at days on market. Days on market actually came down a little bit in December, but you can still expect condos to be on market for a while. So you can take your time to make a decision. Then let's look at the month supply. Actually, we're seeing a decrease just for December. We're still at 10 months, which is still significant. So buyers out there, you got plenty of time to pick a condo. Sorry, sellers. We are going to look at single family homes. We are now in Miramar Beach, just east of Destin. The median sale price you can see right there is very stable. So from last year to this year in December, we didn't see any change. Okay, so that's really good news for you sellers out there. Closed sales, we actually saw an increase. Miramar Beach is in demand right now. It's kind of like the forgotten little secret sandwiched in between Santa Rosa Beach, 30A, that everybody wants to be, and then Destin. So everybody kind of forgets about Miramar Beach. So there may be opportunities there. Closed sales, now we're going to look at days on market. Days on market is up. So even for single family, you've got a little bit more time. Sellers, if you're on market, you need to wait a little while. Buyers, you got time to make a decision. Now, month supply, we're at roughly 8.5 months right now. So it's not horrible, but it is up a little bit. Let's look at our condo market in Miramar Beach. Okay, let's bounce back to the sale price. Sorry if there's a bunch of movement on the screen, but I'm trying to get through this. It's a lot of information to cover. Okay, so you can see how the pricing has slipped a little bit. And again, this is just a monthly snapshot, but it just slipped in December. Let's take a look at the closed, our properties. Oh yeah, we're way up in Miramar Beach for the condos, okay? Days on market, we're looking at 167 days on market. That is a long time. So again, you've got lots of time there. 12 months of supply. There's plenty of product out there, and people are taking notice and they are purchasing, which is a good thing. So now we're going to bounce over to the next city. We're looking at North Santa Rosa Beach. Remember, I talked about anything north of US Highway 98 is roughly considered North Santa Rosa Beach, which is a very different animal from South Santa Rosa Beach. Okay, median pricing there is $651, so it's gone up. There is more pressure, more demand on North Santa Rosa Beach because it's affordable. So you can be close enough to 30A, but you're not paying the 30A prices. Okay, so let's see what's selling in there. There were 31 sales, so it's up slightly. You can see the demand is pretty stable on a month over month or annual, same time each year. Okay, days on market. Let's see how long properties are sitting. So they're sitting roughly 3 months. And let's see how much supply is over there. So you're still in the buyer's territory at 7 months, and we do see quite a bit of new construction in North Santa Rosa Beach. Okay, now let's take a look. We're not going to look at the condos. There's not a whole lot. There's very, very few condos over there, a few townhomes. But now we're going to flip over to 30A Watersound. Let's look at single family first. We're going to look at the pricing. So this is everything south of 30A or south of Highway 98. Okay, so you can look at the price point. It's pretty stable. 1.34. It's up a little bit, from last year. So that's a good sign for the single family. Okay. Now let's look at the closed sales. We have seen quite a few sales in that area, and that does include Watersound. That's a huge development. So there's Watersound on the north side and Watersound on the south side. But so for this instance, we're going to include all of Watersound. Okay. So beautiful new construction, great development. If you have any questions about that, I've got a video on that too. You can check out the Watersound video that I've done too. If you have any questions on that, just let me know. Now, days on market. The median days on market is sitting right at 116. So you still, once again, plenty of time. Let's look at the inventory. We're still in the buyer's area at the 8 months of inventory for single family properties over there in Watersound and 30A area. So now let's take a look at the condos. What's happening? Let's look at the pricing first. Let's stay. Okay, so you can see it, folks. There it is. Okay, so condos are coming down in price. Their sellers are having to be a little more realistic. It may be an opportunity for you buyers wanting to be down there on 30A. Okay. Now we've got the closed sales. Properties are still selling, which is great. Way up from the same time in 2024, which is great news for our market. Days on market has actually gone down, so there is demand still for that area for condos. Okay, now months of supply, 11 months of supply. So still plenty of inventory. Buyers, come on in. Okay. Now Freeport is on the north end, just north of 30A and Santa Rosa Beach. A lot of people like to live there because they're a little bit farther away. So it's still about a 25-minute drive to get to the beaches, but it's much more affordable. Tons of new construction over there. So let's look at the numbers so you know. Okay. So now we're looking at single family, all construction types. So, you're looking at a median right under 400,000. So, and you can even get a new home for 400 or 450. Okay. So great pricing there. If that's something, the lots are still small. That's something you need to know. You're not going to get acreage. You're going to get a small lot, but you're going to get a new house. So that's the trade-off. Let's look at the closed sale. Very robust in Freeport. You can see Freeport demand is there. So it's continuously pressure on the Freeport market. Builders are keeping up with that, so there's still a ton of inventory. Days on market, 76 days on market, months of supply. So we have 4 months of supply, looking on a month to month, which is actually in a seller's market, at least for last month. Okay. So because of that affordability, properties are getting gobbled up. So that now I have another video on Freeport if you want to learn a little bit more about Freeport and what it might be like to live there. So that's important to know too. So now we're going to go to Niceville. So we are headed west. Okay. We're going to be looking at the single family homes. Make sure we're on the right screen. The median sales price is $539. And we've seen an increase from 2024 of December. Okay. Now let's look at the number of closed sales. We've had 47 closed sales. So you can see it constantly goes up. Now, Niceville has a lot of pressure most of the year because a lot of people want to live there to be close to Eglin Air Force Base. So the commute is really good. The schools are great. So there continues to be constant pressure on Niceville. So that's something to know if Niceville is a city that you are eyeballing. Okay. A lot of people like Niceville, other than getting to work pretty easily, is that it's basically a bedroom community of Destin. So you're so close, just north of the Mid-Bay Bridge, 5 miles, and you're in Destin, right? You got all the shopping, restaurants, all that kind of fun stuff. So that's something to know about Niceville. Days on market, 49 days on market. So that's not really a long time. So if you're looking in Niceville and you like a property, you need to make an offer. Okay, because somebody's gonna swoop in and get the home that you like. You don't have time in Niceville. You do in Destin, but you don't in Niceville. So just letting you know. Okay, month of supply, 2 months of supply. Remember I talked about there's pressure on Niceville, even in the winter months. The supply doesn't usually go down that much, but in Niceville, there's typically not a ton of supply. Okay. Great for you sellers out there. Sorry, buyers. Somebody's got to have leverage, right? Okay. Fort Walton Beach. Okay. Single family, median sale price, $350. Super affordable, right? So it's even less, a little bit less than Freeport. You got a lot of older homes there, great neighborhoods, your mature trees, sidewalks, all that kind of stuff if that's important to you. And then you've also got the beach opportunity, right? So, you've got also beach properties. Okay, so median sale price, $350. Let's bounce on over to closed sales, $43. So it stays pretty stable. Fort Walton Beach also has a lot of pressure from the military community because of its location in between Hurlburt to the west and then Eglin, to the east. So just by that proximity, a lot of military families like to be in Fort Walton also. And a lot of military retirees in Fort Walton. Okay, so there's our closed sales. Days on market. So only 31 days on market. So it's even a quicker market than Niceville. It was in December. Okay. Month of supply. We have, again, just like Niceville, just a couple months supply. So if you find something, you need to make an offer. Okay. We do have a condo market that is worth noting in Fort Walton Beach. So the median sale price is actually up in Fort Walton Beach. Okay. Number of closed sales, 17. Properties are still selling. Days on market, 265. Wow. That almost seems unbelievable. But there you have it. Those are the stats. It's not a guessing game. It comes straight from the MLS. Okay. Now let's look at the months of supply. 11 months of supply. Again, you already know what that means. Lots of things to look at for the buyers. Then you can always negotiate, right? So you have an opportunity to get a lower sales price, to have a buy down on your mortgage, or you can have more repairs, lots of options for that to get a better deal. Okay, there you have it. That is the summary of the Emerald Coast. If you have any questions about any of the data that you've seen or any properties along the Emerald Coast, please let me know. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and drop them down and below. I'd be happy to hear from you. In the meantime, stay tuned for my update next month. And until the next video, I will talk to you then. Bye.